Hello and welcome, or I should say hello world, and welcome to the first episode of my series on what to watch at reinvent today. And this is the first episode ever because reinvent started like a few hours ago. So the idea is that because the content catalog is so vast and there's so many sessions and there is so many announcements, to bring on experts to chat about what you should watch today and in the future. So if you don't know me, I'm Marcia Villalba, developer advocate for AWS. And first, before bringing my guest, I want to show you a little website where you can find all the guests that are coming in the future episodes. So I will leave you this link in the screen in a second. But there you can see all the guests that are coming. If you go to the bottom, there is the schedule. And here is the guest for today, is Ricardo and Alex. And they are coming into the screen in a second. And you can see every day at what time we are streaming and who is coming in the show. So without further ado, I will introduce you my two amazing guests, Alex and Ricardo. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Being here.
How are you doing, guys?
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, I'm super happy. This is, as I was saying, my excuse to see people on reinvent because I missed that part. But maybe you can introduce yourself first, Alex, who you are and what you miss from reinvent.
Hi, my name is Aleksandar Simovic. I come from Belgrade, Serbia. I'm an AWS serverless hero, author of serverless applications with Node.js, published by Manning. I write a lot about, I actually implement a lot about some serverless components on the app repository. Yeah. So what do I miss about AWS reInvent? Well, I guess we talked already about the jet lag. That's what I don't miss. 4 a.m. breakfast at Denny's, that's something definitely we talked about. Even though I was always late there, like everybody would have jet lag.
Lucky you could sleep.
Yeah, I guess they kind of function on that kind of schedule in real life, you know. But what I miss about reInvent is, actually meeting so many talented and so many good-natured people who are building so many amazing things. So I think this is the first thing which I really miss about reInvent this year, is actually seeing and meeting so many people with amazing life stories and amazing work. And and actually at the same time, I miss actually meeting a lot of people from AWS. With many of them, I'm friends, and it's a bit sad not to see them. And at the same time, I would like to use this opportunity to maybe to congratulate them and tell them great work, and I'm sure you'll all be happy in a few days when all your launches get public. So
I think the pay year is longer because it's a 3-week event. So people are launching things until the end of the conference. So teams are suffering until the last day.
Yeah, but I believe that, I don't know, like, I guess maybe it doesn't mean a lot, but in a way, I want to say thank you for all your work, because as a customer, I don't work for AWS. I'm just a serverless hero. We are all very grateful for all the work you do. So I think you just deserve a nice thanks at least.
Hello, Ricardo. You're from
Hello.
AWS like me.
Yes. Hello, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Ricardo Sueiras. I'm a fellow Latino, like Marcia, but I come from Galicia, northwest of Spain, although from my accent, you can tell that I don't speak it on a day-to-day basis. And I'm a principal advocate for open source. So I love speaking with customers and developers about all things open source, whether it's projects they're creating and they want to open source that and get more awareness, or whether it's stuff that AWS is releasing or contributing to in open source. And so when it comes to what do I miss, we've talked about Denny's breakfast, the legendary Denny breakfast at 4 a.m.
What is that? Is is usually a secret breakfast that happens for all the Europeans that are super jet lagged and cannot sleep. And we are in some developer chat for AWS community or something like that. Hey, who wants to have breakfast at 4 a.m? That's the only place that serves food. So we all meet.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's always amazing because you never know who you're going to see, but you're always going to see someone, right? And so what happens is you start off with one table, and then 2 more people turn up, so you have to move the tables together. And by the end of like the breakfast, you've got like about 8 or 9 tables all together, and it's just great. It's fantastic. So I'm definitely going to miss that. But of course, I'm also going to miss meeting our wonderful customers who, after 30 or 40,000 steps, are still amazingly, curious and eager to learn more. And so I'm going to miss that immensely, I think, this year. But this is a great alternative, Marcia. So thank you for putting this together. It's a really good way for us to try and keep us all, all in touch.
And again, because we all miss the people, engage with us in the chat. Tell us where you're watching from. I have here Alex from Russia, Lex from Denmark, many people saying hello. So hello, and tell us what you're missing from reinvent. What is the things that, if you've ever been there, or what you're expecting this year? So now we have these 2 amazing guys, and they are going to talk about what is they're expecting, what are the announcements that they saw that they were interesting, and also what talks they are waiting for in today, tomorrow, or even in the next 3 weeks, because there are so many amazing talks. So maybe we can start chatting a little bit about the announcements. So there were not that many announcements yet because there was only 1 day of reinvent, but there were so many pre-announcements. So maybe we can chat about the open source pre-announcements that you are pretty excited about, Ricardo.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Alex, please feel free to chime in as well. So there was great. And over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had some amazing open source related sort of pre-invent announcements. So, one of them I think that was launched at KubeCon was Carpenter, open source project called Carpenter, which is a CNCF project that is still in development, but it allows you to create auto-scaling metrics for Kubernetes clusters. I really like RabbitMQ. So ActiveMQ is a kind of a open source metric, and we've already support ActiveMQ, but now we've added RabbitMQ as well. So I'm not sure if either of you have used that in the past, but it used to be. I remember when I first started working in cloud native in the 12-factor apps, and one of the kind of the early open source projects that was the glue to the architectures was RabbitMQ. So it's great to see that that we offer that now as a managed service. And of course, last week, a great post by colleague Danilo, which was the managed workflows for Apache Airflow, which is effectively a managed service for Apache Airflow workflows. So I think those are kind of some of the standout ones for me for preempt. There's lots of other ones, which we can dive into if there's time, but those are the ones I've really, really enjoyed so far.
Yeah, we have so many people watching from different places. It's so super excited. Somebody's asking if we have tried IVS, that is the interactive video service. Have you tried it?
Yeah, I've not used it yet. The interactive video service.
I have checked it out in a previous live stream that I did with one of the it's not a developer advocate, but one of their leads solution architects on the IVS, and he was showing me how easy it is to get used to use it and try it out. And I was amazed how simple it is to start streaming and creating your applications, and it's totally integrated to Amplify. So basically you can build your website in minutes with live streaming. So
I'm not sure if you're familiar. There's actually, I think, a couple, maybe more now, but there were 2. I think the team, it might be the team or it might be someone like a solutions architect. They've open sourced a couple of reference examples for the interactive video service. I think one of them is like an app which is kind of like a kind of e-commerce thing, which allows you to do things like pretend you're doing a video catalog type thing and you want to buy stuff, and another one is for a kind of like more like a gaming experience. And there might be some more now. I know that because I've covered them in my
whole website on examples. I don't remember the URL. I need to look for it, and I can paste it in the chat in a moment. But it was full of examples, and one was the shop and like chats and gaming and all kind of polling and all kind of interesting examples. So I don't know, Alex, you're a serverless hero. You were mentioning some of the pre-announcements that got you excited. For me, it's the extensions.
Yeah,
think about.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people are excited about extensions, just because you're now able to do a lot more.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm on the other side. So usually, before I would be super excited about Lambda and everything, but now I'm kind of always leaning more towards AppSync, GraphQL applications with also with Event Bridge, so event sourcing applications. I'm gonna be honest. I'm now only using Lambda for transformations. So So just when I need to transform some data from a different format or apply specific changes. So anyway, the announcements which I wanna emphasize are the CloudFormation modules. So for me, that's a super interesting announcement because I was a big fan, and I am still a big fan of application repository, several application repository. So for me, having modules is something similar to it, but a bit kind of a kind of different product for a different kind of setup, for a different kind of thing that you want to build. I don't know, like best practices within your own organization, where you want to say, hey, I want to build a specific module, I don't know, for accounting and whatever, and you can just literally build it, and some other places within your company can use it. So basically building blocks. So this is, we're just combining Legos. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Legos.
Maybe like CDK, those, how they are called, those components.
Constructs. They're called constructs.
Yes.
So I was going to ask that. How is that different to the AWS constructs?
Well, one is built on CDK and the other one might be built on CloudFormation.
Right.
I don't know, at least that's how I understood it.
Because ultimately CDK synthesizes down to CloudFormation, doesn't it? Yeah. So how would you use the two together? Is it possible to use these modules in CloudFormation with CDK?
Maybe we should ask Darko.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that now some people have at the same time available. It's available that they're able to use CDK constructs one hand, app repo on the other hand, and a third you have modules. So for some people that might be confusing, but actually it's, in my opinion, kind of simple. So if you're a CDK person and you love CDK, constructs are the thing for you, and you publish them on NPM. So this is basically the way you handle that. If you use basically our CloudFormation modules, well, you can actually then you can use CloudFormation to kind of similarly to the similar thing. Not exactly. You can combine different things in also best practices and share them with other people. And app repo is kind of something different, which is just focused on SAM and serverless, AWS SAM, and you can publish those applications, share with others as well. As all three are kind of similar. So depends on what's your preferred, I would say, templating language. Is it cloud?
So basically, it's about choice, isn't it? It's about whatever you prefer. If you're a developer that likes to code, you might prefer CDK. But if you're used to using CloudFormation, then you've now got some extra capabilities.
Exactly. The thing which I like about it is that you can you have that CloudFormation registries and everything. Anyway, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty, but I really like the CloudFormation modules, and there are already blogs available for interaction. You can find them on the announcement blogs. So that's one thing. Second thing which I'm interested, second announcement was also the export from DynamoDB to S3. So this is super useful, and I think a lot of companies needed that because they were using DynamoDB as their database storage. So they would have to actually sometimes even manually just export their data to actually enable it for analytics, because as we all know, Dynamodb isn't the database of choice for analytics and for like SQL queries and everything. So I don't want to go into OLTP, OLAP discussions. But yeah, now exporting to S3 enables you to use Athena, which is amazingly pay-per-use tool. I mean, I love Athena.
And also Dynamo has support for this particle. I don't know how you pronounce that
particle
kind of SQL query language.
Which is open source. It's a great open source project, right?
Yeah. Man, it made a lot of polemic on the Twitter space on how efficient it was for Dynamo. I have not tried. Right. There was a lot of scanning involved.
Not to forget, we have the last which I announced, which I want to mention, is the Logs API for Lambda. This is, CloudWatch. You don't have to go through CloudWatch anymore. You can use any tool you want, and this is for me personally also super great, because you don't have to rely just on CloudWatch. You can use Datadog or Lumigo or some other Epsagon and other tools that you prefer. So I think this is super good for companies that are I don't know, customers such as my company. I work as a senior software engineer at Science Exchange. So for our monitoring tools, it's pretty amazing to have Logs API.
Yeah.
And so how would you compare that with, we did a lot of pre-invent announcements around the open distro for open telemetry, so providing observability and additional capabilities of understanding your applications end to end using that. So how does that capability compare with that? How would you use the two together, or are they completely separate things?
Can you clarify? I didn't quite get which separate things. The CloudWatch and the Datadog API. You mean the Logs API? Okay.
So I think I was just going back to pre-invent. When pre-invent, we launched the open distro for open telemetry, which provides you the capabilities to kind of instrument your applications. It then provides kind of collectors, which include CloudWatch, and then you can then put into backend data, like it could be Datadog, it could be Splunk, it could be whatever. But the idea is that you have observability from your entire end-to-end application lifecycle, including logs, right? So how does this capability kind of fit into that piece there?
So with I haven't used open telemetry tools that I haven't actually tried them personally, so I can't really give that kind of I don't have that experience that I can share. What I can say is regarding particular for Logs API, many companies, including my own, use tools such as New Relic, Datadog, or and other tools which they already are their preferred tools of choice because not a single application is based just on serverless. You always occasionally even have other tools and in technologies in place. So with the logs, so if you were using serverless in that case, you would have to separately, occasionally, there were ways you could, circumvent that, but you would have to go through the CloudWatch. Occasionally, at the beginning, you would go to the CloudWatch logs and through the console and everything, and get the data and everything. And right now, with the Logs API, you don't have to do that because these tools that you're already using, such as I mentioned, like for example, New Relic, they already have these integrations with Logs API, so you don't have to. So they're all accumulated in one single spot for you. You don't have to go through 500 different kind of spots and say, hey, how is this piece of my application behaving on AWS side, which is a serverless piece? How is my application behaving on, if you have some, Heroku, like we do, we still have some instances which are on Heroku. Combining those two can sometimes be, it's not really a big of a problem, but it's a lot better if you have that consolidated. Mm-hmm. So it's a better and really great, a really improved user experience for AWS customers.
Wow, that sounds brilliant.
One question for you from the audience, Alex. Do you know some good tool for writing BTL for app sync resolvers?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
I know.
I have the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Velocity has been around for such a long time as well.
But nobody was using it until AppSync.
Yeah. I mean, so VTL is really annoying. Honestly, I'm gonna be really honest, and I think some people will disagree and say, well, you can say that for any kind of technology, but I don't know. What can I say? In my personal case, I had to go through the suffering of learning, how to properly write VTL, and sometimes you wouldn't really see the messages and everything. I know there are some friends of mine who share that. I will not say some. I would say most share that. It's not hatred, but I would say dislike of VTL for just So honestly, good tools to recommend. Not really. We have our own internal kind of. So my co-author of mine, Slobodan Stojanovic, who's also been on this series, we have some snippets that we share and everything. So from VTL, so I think that's kind of something that I would recommend, like having these best practices, template snippets, and everything that you can reuse. And I think you can find a lot of them already available online. So
yeah. I was going to say that actually, because I think I can't find the actual link, but I run a weekly open source newsletter where I cover anything to do with AWS and open source. And there was one post, and I think the title was something how to learn to love VTL in AppSync, and it shared. Like you said, some best practices and approaches that actually made working with VTL much more straightforward. So I'll see if I can dig it up and then share it with your listeners, maybe after the show, Marcia.
At least for me, my rule of thumb using VTL is use it until it becomes too painful, and then use a Lambda transformation, because now you can integrate Lambda into that. So when it becomes too painful, then I use Lambda. But I try to go until the edge with VTL because it's free.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Somebody's asking for support. We don't know anything. Stay tuned for reinvent. You can always bring your custom runtime. I have a video on how to do it for Dino. If you want to see it, check the YouTube videos. But what about the roadmap? Stay tuned. And we also have 3 weeks.
And we also have a blog post on the open source blog from Robert Zhu, actually, talking about Deno, what it is, and actually how you get started on AWS with it.
So you pronounce it Deno, not Dino. I've been calling it Dino.
Well, you know what? I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it is Dino because of the logo, the dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've been calling it, Dino.
So I just thought I'd be controversial. So
okay, good.
and call it Deno, but I think it is Dino. So apologies for anyone who I've upset by calling it Deno. It's not meant to be.
I always double check because English is not my native language, so I always like how you pronounce this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's start chatting a little bit on what to watch today and in the following weeks in reinvent. I have to say the obvious. Today is Andy's Chassis keynote, so watch that one. And you can play some games with it. Every time he says a launch, you can eat a potato chip or drink a shot.
And get hyper anxious.
Yeah. It's 3 hours, so it's going to be pretty crazy.
Actually, Marty, before you talk about that, so it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the things that, when we've been to reinvent in the past, we all know where we watch the keynote, right? So whether you're in the hall or whether you all go round, because I know in the last 2 or 3 years, we've always huddled around the developer lounge, which is in the, I think it's the expo. So I'm not sure, Aleksandar, where you typically have watched them, whether you've gone into the actual stadium and listened to them, or whether you have your own spot where you like to watch the keynotes.
I think you know that answer. This is why you're asking that question. This is why, actually, this is a bit of I mean, this is one of the benefits.
First row.
Come on,
exactly. I had to say it. First row, fantastic. Look what you can get if you're an AWS hero.
This is why exactly. This is what I wanted to say. Like, as an AWS hero, you kind of get these I would say, benefits of being in the first row, of literally in front of Andy or Werner, and that's definitely the place where this is something I would say we would miss as well, because it's kind of like some kind of a VIP access. But yeah.
Now you can watch it from your sofa in your pajamas.
Yeah, now you're as well. Exactly.
And you can go in the toilet whenever you want to. You don't need to wait for the 3 hours to end.
That's true.
That's a perk.
So I'm gonna chime in here with a bit of a kind of like a heads up for people watching this show, that there's ComSum AWS user group in the north of England. They're doing a reinvent sort of over the next 3 weeks, and as part of that they're doing a quiz. It's a mastermind reinvent special, okay, and we've done that and it's fantastic. So I thought, Marcia, maybe I could ask people watching this to, maybe if I ask a few questions, we can see how they answer and see if they get it right or not.
Yeah, we can try that in the chat.
Yeah. So if I ask say one question now, people please, no cheating, no googling, right? Because it's dead easy. And the reason why I'm asking the question now is because this is actually one that's relevant to the keynote. So, Werner Vogels, when he does his keynotes, or Andy Jassy when he does his keynotes, Werner specifically, he loves to wear specific t-shirts. So I want to know, people watching, what t-shirt did Werner Vogels wear during the 2017 keynote? So if you know what that was, answer it. 2017, yes, not last year or the year before. 2017. So answer if you were there, if you were a hero and you were sat at the front line like Aleksandar, then maybe you know the answers. Put it in the chat and we'll see who gets it right.
That's a crazy question. Yeah, so just let us know. But while people answer that crazy question, maybe Alex can share with us some of his top pick for reinvent.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna start philosophically again. Just kidding. So there are 5 sessions I would emphasize, really, if you're into serverless. So first, I already see Smith Shaw wrote that he's looking forward to Dynamodb stuff. So, for example, whether you are a serverless enthusiast or not, and you have all used NoSQL databases in the past, and you are going to be using, there is one, I would say, a relic, literally, not an ancient relic, a real relic of a session by Rick Houlihan. And this session is basically the standard session that comes every single reinvent, and a lot of people always recommend it. So if you haven't seen it, this is I would say, the number one that you should see. It says it's called Data Modeling with Amazon Dynamodb.
Yeah.
If you wanna, I'm gonna share the link with Marcia, and so she will share with you folks.
For all the people watching, I will create a list of all the talks at the end and put them in the description of the video, so you can go and click directly into them. So it's easier for you to find the talks that we recommend. Somebody's saying Foo Fighters.
Yes, we have a winner. Well done.
Good.
Yeah. Well done. Another Aleksandar.
Yeah.
No connection, I hope.
No. That's the name. And if you want to find the code because as you've probably all seen, if you've taken a look at the session catalog, each session has its kind of ID. So if you want to find it very quickly, just search for DAT 305. So DAT 305, and you'll Marcia just shared also in the comments. So this is really a session about how do you model really with NoSQL databases, particularly with Dynamodb, and it really is top notch. Like this is number one I would recommend.
Yeah. And talking about Dynamo, there is Alex Debris also giving a session on that. So I'm very interested on that. If you don't know Alex, he's also a AWS hero. He's a data hero. He wrote, I think, the best book on Dynamo.
Yeah.
And he has a session on how to model with Dynamo. So I'm very excited watching that talk.
Yeah, actually, yeah, amazing book. I would recommend that as well. If you are interested into learning, go see Alex DeBrie's book. Definitely a recommended choice.
What else you have in your list?
Well, actually, as I'm a serverless kind of person, I know you with serverless stuff, basically.
They are in my channel. It's called FooBar Serverless. They are here for all that things.
Okay. So my focus again are AppSync, Amplify, and Event Bridge at the moment, and also building applications with TypeScript. But anyway, this is just technology. So I would recommend several of sessions like that. One of which is, if, for example, if you want to get some introductory, what you can do with AppSync, GraphQL, and everything. There's a session by Ed Lima, which is like a power modern serverless application with GraphQL and AWS AppSync. It's a level 200. So what's a level 200? It's not a starter talk that you never heard about it, but it's an introduction into using AppSync and GraphQL. I'm going to share the link about that with Marcia, so she will share it with you as well.
And Ricardo, you also had some GraphQL session to recommend.
Yeah, I did, yeah. So actually, and it's today. So well, it's very late for the Europeans, but it's repeated. So all the sessions, or most of the sessions, are going to be repeated at least twice to accommodate all the different time zones.
3 times, I think. One for America, one from Europe, and one for Asia Pacific. And then they are going on demand, I think, at the end of the week.
Exactly. So if you're in Europe and you want to stay up late, so 10:30 Central European time, we've got session ID OPN 201 as part of the open source track. We've got Robert Zhu talking about an introduction into GraphQL, and it's a great talk. I've had a chance to give it a sneak preview. So if you want to know more about what GraphQL is, then this is the session for you to attend as well.
Cool. And somebody is asking about your experience, Alex, with the Oculus that you received.
Really? Do you know who that
Goran,
is?
yeah. I didn't read the name.
I mean, hi, Goran, nice to see you.
Someone, yeah.
Someone. It's someone.
Yeah, Goran is also, he's a data hero.
Yeah.
And so he's a bit trolling right now because I didn't get my...
oh, you didn't?
No.
I hope you complain.
But he did, because he probably knows some people in the customs. I'm sure of that,
Damn.
But anyway, just kidding. No, so I haven't actually tried it yet. So as part of the Hero program this year, because we didn't get to go to reInvent and everything, we were sent some Oculus Quest 2s, as far as I know. And I still haven't received mine, which is pretty sad.
It's very sad.
But I mean, look at you saying it's so good. Come on, stop calling.
Keep it coming, Goran. We want more.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So let's continue with your chosen talks, so we forget this someone that is trolling you in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. So to actually connect to Ricardo's open source mentions and sessions, if you don't maybe want to, if you don't want to take a look at these sessions that we're recommending, there are other guides as well. And one of which is, I'm a big fan of the list that was made by Adrian Cockcroft. And this list is, if you're interested into machine learning and which inferences should you take and everything, not to go on further. I think like with a guide such as that one will be super useful. So you have actually not just his guide, but of other heroes and other experts in the field, even in the AWS VPs and employees and people who are relevant in that field gave very nice guides, so you can find them on the reInvent catalog. Really good guides.
So actually, Aleksandar, you mentioned Adrian. Adrian just literally, I think a few hours ago, published a blog post on Medium with a curated list of links, but not on serverless this time or architecture. specifically on sustainability related sessions. So
Wow.
it's really interesting because it does cover architecture. It covers a lot of things that you might expect, but it goes obviously. So if you're interested in sustainability, like we all should be, then it's a really good blog post. I'll share the link with you, Marcia, so you can share it on your screen.
I will share it. Somebody's asking our thoughts on the Mac OS announcement. I was very surprised. What about you guys? It was not something I was expecting at all.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I love the announcement. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, it's going to make it so much easier now for Mac developers to develop in the cloud and scale up their work. I think it's interesting, and I think we'll probably see. You know, I think they're Intel-based instances at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what happens with support for Graviton instances in the future, and how that plays into the M1 MacBook processor architecture that they have now. But I think it's a great way to start. I think keep us guessing.
Yeah.
It was very surprising. It was the first reinvent official launch.
Personally, for me, that was pretty good. I really like that announcement. And I think a lot of customers who are building applications on for macOS, particularly some kind of apps like that, I think they're going to love it. I think that's going to be super amazing, and I think it's actually a really good, strategically good announcement. I mean, as a customer, I can take a look and say, hey, this makes sense. So yeah, I don't know. I think I mean, at the moment, there's nothing specially I would use it for, but I think there are products which I know that actually are built particularly for macOS. For the macOS market, and having an EC2 instance for that is really cool.
Yeah. And to be able to do the CI/CD on that things, I think that's very important, because when I was working in the gaming industry, we have a rack of Mac Minis just for doing the builds and all this kind of thing, and it was.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Marcia. I think that's exactly because I remember before I joined AWS, I worked with lots of developers, and the policy of the company was that not to give them MacBooks, right? And one of the things that developers used to tell me they were really frustrated with is it was really hard to create native iOS or Apple optimized applications because they didn't have MacBooks or tablets, right? So this could be a way to kind of help those developers, create better native applications for the Apple platform.
Yeah. So I want to see where it's going, because I think it's the beginning of a totally new world for Mac developers and front-end developers and mobile developers.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe now the eBay will get flooded with all these Mac Minis now, so we can all buy them as well.
Yeah, let's see. But imagine a container full of Mac Minis. I want to see the data center. Yeah. Do you have some other talks in your list? Alex, more serverless.
Yes. If you're a PHP person and you're interested into the LAMP stack and how does that convey to serverless, there is a great session by Ben Smith.
He's great.
Yeah, I know Ricardo is going to like it because it's under the OPN, open source.
In my track. It's in my track. I actually asked Ben. So the story behind this is that me and Ben have been talking about PHP on AWS for some time, and I've loved his series on modernizing LAMP stack, and so I reached out, say, look, do you fancy doing a session, a reinvent? And this is the culmination of that, and it's going to be fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Same. I think Ben is an amazing speaker. Has a very interesting topic, and this topic actually covers some areas which AWS hasn't really previously covered that much. So this is actually a nice, really talk. I think if you go, if you attend it, you're not gonna actually, you're gonna feel excited. Actually, I'm gonna be honest. I am excited to look at that one. I was actually searching for a proper word for that.
It's a good time
anyway.
as well, because obviously PHP 8, but PHP has just been released as well, isn't it? PHP 8 was released, I think, last week as well. So great timing to kind of bring LAMP back into fashion.
Exactly. I mean, okay. Anyway, so that's OPN 302.
Yeah, I already pasted the link.
Yes, you have the link. This is great. And the other sessions which I want to recommend are mostly focused about Event Bridge. So if you're interested about event sourcing, serverless event sourcing applications, so all three of those sessions which I would recommend are level 300, which is more advanced. So if you, for example, we already had some questions people asking here on your Marcia's stream. They were asking about, VTL and AppSync. So I think for most of you, these sessions are going to be interesting. Number one is building event-driven applications with Amazon Event Bridge by Stephen Ledig. This one is API 302. Marcia is gonna share with you.
Yes, I'm putting all the links in the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Second, I think this one is gonna be super interesting. I'm really interested to see what are also some of the best practices that are recommended and what is the approach that you should take. Other one which I'm interested in is the best practices to securely operate GraphQL at scale with Wsfc.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yes, this is super valuable if you are, for example, you already built an application and you want to be sure that, for example, what's the security of the application? What are the rules you should apply to your app for your users? So in general, many of the blog posts you would find about AppSync at the moment are like, hey, this is how you create one. This is how you use Cognito or something like that. But focusing specifically on security and scalability with AppSync is very interesting, and I'm gonna share that link.
I already did.
Awesome. So that's Bryce Pell, if I pronounce it Pelly or something like that. But anyway, by the way, it's also a CIO level of talk. So if some of you guys folks here are a CIO maybe or interested in that kind of work, this might be an interesting perspective as well. Another session about serverless, which I could say, which is the last serverless talk I would recommend, but not the least, it's definitely one of the more important ones, is how does Lego accelerate innovation with serverless?
That's coming today, so that's a must.
Yes. So if you have time today, recommend the talk. Delivered by Danilo Poccia and Shane Bristles. Shane Bristles, I think he's an architect he's also a serverless hero. And I'm very happy to have him as a serverless hero, really. His talks are really amazing and really interesting. And if you're into Legos and you want to see how does Lego use serverless completely in their environment, in their company, this is the talk to go to. I think Marcia already probably shared it.
I already put the link in the screen.
Yeah, this is, so as I said, one of the most interesting talks.
And it's today.
Yes. It's important to mention it because many companies have these migration problems of, does my company, who is using serverless? Does my company need to use serverless? Whatever. But when you see a huge company that's operating on a worldwide scale, such as Lego, I think this is a good case, both as a business case, but at the same time, how to use serverless to actually, build a faster company in that sense. So anyway, really recommend it.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, I'm really. Ricardo, tell us some open source sessions for this
absolutely.
week.
Yeah. So let me share with you stuff that's happening this week. Yes. I'll talk a little bit about the open source track, and then I'll also talk about some of the open source sessions that are not in the open source track, because luckily for us, open source is something that touches on a lot of areas, so it's in lots of different spaces. So let me share a few other sessions that aren't in the open source track, but for example in the containers track or in the architecture track. But before I do that, I want to actually share what the kind of a couple of things that I'm really excited about at reinvent, and what I'm outside of open source, but still open source related. The two things I'm really excited about are any talks or any announcements around the Graviton 2, which is our ARM-based processor. And the reason why it's related to open source is quite often, with open source projects, you have the source code, which means that you can actually compile that to a native architecture, including Intel or, in this instance, Graviton. So open source plays nicely into the Graviton, and a lot of our customers are doing some amazing things there. But the other, maybe lesser known project, product and service is AWS Nitro Enclaves, which was announced last reinvent. It's recently become GA, and it's a really interesting project that again uses a lot of open source. In fact, it's all open source. The actual, from the point of view of kind of the reference implementations, the tools, the CLI. It's built on Rust, I believe. So I'm kind of interested in those kind of sessions as well. So I've been scanning. There's a few really cool things there. So outside of open source, although still open source related, those two are things that I'm really excited about.
I added the Nitro in my own personal things to watch, because it's something people have been talking about a lot, and I know very little about hardware. It's like, maybe I should go and check those Nitro sessions to know what people are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. And actually, I think last week Colm did a deep dive on Nitro Enclaves as to what they are, how you use them, and he gave 3 typical use cases as well. So I encourage people to look at that. I actually have a weekly newsletter, which we'll share the link with, where I shared the links for that. So let's talk about the open source track, and let's talk about what's happening this week. So I mentioned already we've got the GraphQL talk today and tomorrow. Robert Zhu, he's basically giving you a primer for those people who aren't familiar with what GraphQL is. It's a query language for APIs that really helps you optimize your mobile applications and the resources they use. We've also got lots of AWS customers and partners talking. So tomorrow we've got Red Hat who are presenting OpenShift, and a recent announcement that we had during pre-event, which is the Red Hat OpenShift on AWS, which is effectively a managed OpenShift for you. So if you love using OpenShift, then whether you use it on-prem or somewhere else, you can now use it as a managed service. So that talk is tomorrow. And then we've got,
can you share the links, or where are they?
I will share the link. That's actually, that one is not a talk in the open source track. That's actually in one of the other customer sessions.
Okay.
But in the open source track, we've got also app modernization, which is tomorrow, using Apache Kafka. So this is from one of our partners, Confluent. So Confluent have a managed Kafka service, and they're going to be talking about how enterprise customers, including regulated industries, are using Kafka today, the use cases, and how they're using that and moving those workloads either on Confluent Cloud or on AWS. So that's a great one. And then also tomorrow we've got a really great session, which if you're interested about open source and how open source communities work together, we've got an AWS developer, Madden Olsen, together with Yossi Gottlieb, who's the maintainer of Redis, and they're going to be talking about the community, the roadmap, how they're working together, how we're working with the Redis community. Then we've got sessions on a lot of stuff on kind of AppSync and Amplify.
Yeah.
We've got a great session on open source observability. I think Michael Hassenblaus has got a session, and that's going to be talking about not just open distro for telemetry, but it's going to be talking about things like FileEnds, and what observability means from an open source perspective in AWS. So that's the open source track this week. Outside of this week, we've also got and I'll share the link. So
I just put the link in the blog post.
Brilliant.
in the chat, so people can go and check them out, because there are so many.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, the open source track is only running this week and next week. So the third week we give everyone a break because it's too much to take in. But then we've got a lot of kind of Amplify stuff as well. So front end. So Nadia Debet is going to do a really great session on. I
wanted to talk about that. This is an amazing session. Really,
yeah. He's such a great talker, isn't he?
Excuse me.
What session?
So he's actually doing several, which I understood, right?
Yeah.
So one is unifying access to salary data with AWS. So this is, so if you're interested in those VTL resolvers, this is a good one, right? Right, Ricardo?
Yeah. So that's OPN 204 is the Accelerate That app, with
Yeah.
Amplify open source framework. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one in our track. But then, like you said, there are if you FMW, I think, which is the front mobile web, I think is what short for. That's where you've got the power modern serverless applications with GraphQL, empower front end web and mobile app development with that, and then build iOS and Android apps.
Yeah.
So all of these are great sessions, including that one actually is where they're going to be talking about Flutter as well. So if you're interested in Flutter, which is I think is an open source project from Google, or originated from Google, that allows you to build beautiful front ends. How you integrate that with Amplify? Well, we've got a session for you on that, FMW 303. So we've also got a session also with building real-time applications with Apache Flink for people who are interested in data analytics. Antje, one of our colleagues, is also doing a brilliant session with end-to-end machine working workflows, the Kubeflow pipelines, which is going to be next week. And you've already mentioned Ben's session next week on the serverless LAMP stack. And then we've also got a very interesting project, which is called the Accelerating the Path to SaaS Adoption, which is, going to help people who have got open source projects provide services that people can use of that open source project. Okay, so watch out for that session as well. And then we've got another one of our colleagues, Adrian, who's going to be talking about open source failure injection on AWS, together with Prime Video. So that's just a little taste there, Marcia, of the open source track and sessions. But it's going to be great. And we've got, like I said, outside of the open source track, we've got about 30 or 40 sessions, which I'll share with you the links of the blog post where you can actually go in and actually dive deep as to what they actually cover.
Yeah, I have a couple of recommendations, at least for today, because there's so many sessions that I will be on screen for the next 3 weeks, so I can splurge and tell all my favorites. But you mentioned Adrian. Adrian Horsby is one of our colleagues, and he's doing a really cool session today about reliability, consistency, and confidence through immutability. He likes to talk about chaos engineering, immutable infrastructure. He is the developer advocate for architecture, and he's a great speaker and sharing stories. His talks are always packed full, so I totally recommend that session. It's something that is quite advanced level, but I think it's always nice to see Adrian speaking and explaining things. And don't be afraid if you sit on a free 400 level session and you don't know anything about it, just enjoy it. And if you get a little bit, that's good.
Yeah. I think you're right, Marcia. I think what Adrian does really well is he even though it might be a complex topic at 300, he builds it up very nicely so that you can you can always get something from it.
Yeah. Then I have another one that is from the Builders Library collection. That's a really interesting talk. I don't know, have you checked the Builders Library that was announced last year?
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. And they're building up. They keep adding more, every now and then, don't they?
Yeah, and there's a full track of Builders Library, and they have one talk today that is called the Pragmatic Cloud Developer. And it sounds very interesting, like how Amazon does, what is the approach of Amazon, what is the way that we do things, and like all these experiences from really building cloud applications. So if you don't know, we eat our own dog food. Everything is built with the tools that we build. So it's part of a learning process. So I think this will be a very interesting session. And one that I recommend always, besides the Rick Houlihan talk that you already mentioned, this is another, I think something like this happens every year, that is Introduction to Identity Services and Security in AWS, because IAM is such a monster. And this session, I think I watch it every year again to refresh my, how to write IAM policies.
It's not a bad idea though. That's a good idea though, because all the new features we release every year, it's a great way to kind of refresh your knowledge of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so I will recommend that one, because I think you never know everything in IAM, and even if it's a very introductory talk, it's nice to just watch it in now we can scroll forward very fast, so you don't need to watch the whole talk, but just to try to get the like if there is something that changed or something new, because IAM is one of those services that is very, very important no matter what you do inside AWS.
I think VPC, the networking was, well, I do that with the IAM one and the networking as well, because
I don't touch VPCs.
Oh, don't you?
No.
Why not?
They're scary. Now with CDK, I have been doing more VPCs, but before CDK, building a VPC for me was super challenging, because with CloudFormation, it was too much.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. You know, you touched on a really good point, because I recently spent some weeks learning CDK, and you're right. In literally 2 or 3 lines, you've now got all the code you need and does everything for you. It's just fantastic, isn't it?
That's what it brought me to CDK.
and before you had to like probably write around like
400
20 resources, CloudFormation resources. No, not 20, but quite a lot to build one VPC network for you, which is, this is why I like the modules. Yes. This is the reason why I like the modules, CloudFormation modules, because this is going to enable having those kind of best practices, and like just I want to use this piece which builds a VPC for me. Done. Yeah. This is why I'm excited about that.
And then I have a couple of announcements that I want to do before we close the stream. We have 5 minutes. There are 2 things that if people want to register, the game day still has slots. I don't know if you ever play a game day, but it's very fun. And there are free game. There are 6 game days, 2 for United States, Americas, Europe, and then the time zone. So you don't need to be at 2 in the morning doing it, but it's a register-based one. So you need to register for this. It's one of the few things that you need to register. There are still slots. So do it if you want to participate, because it's going to be very fun. And I think the one for United States is happening this week. So go for it. And the other thing I want to mention, and then we can just randomly chat, is the AWS On Air. And that's the live streaming that we are doing through reinvent. There is always the launchpad in Twitch when we are on place, but this year we have the AWS On Air, and that's basically from the morning until the night, US based. There is shows with product teams, with customers, with partners. At the end of the day, there is a recap in English, and also in friendly time zones for all of you watching. There is recaps in French, German, Chinese, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. So I think that's something worth mentioning, because it's kind of hidden in the navigation thing. And I think it's one of those things that is not going to be like, you need to enjoy it when reinvent is happening. So, so yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
That's great.
That's cool.
May I make a confession, if I may? I'm not sure if it's appropriate, but I'm not a big fan of the reinvent app from the general Outlook. But it works awesome when you already pick a session which you already like, and it's you can find the related sessions very easily. So in general, I am sure that some people are going to be like, I can't find the session which I wanted to find, or something like that. Because, for example, when I initially took a look, I was a bit confused, because usually there was do you recall the old app for reinvent, which you had to schedule your own seats and everything. Now you no longer have to do that, which is amazing. But I'm still struggling with the UI sometimes for some reason.
I think that it changed quite a lot from yesterday to today. The search, I think it improved. Now you can search by speaker, by code, and more flexible. So I'm happy for that. But
and deep links. You can do deep links finally.
Deep links, yes.
Exactly. Now that's great. I mean, what I wanted to say was, you can easily find the keynotes and everything, but if you want to find some specifics, find a recommended list of sessions which you want to do, I was a bit confused. But now when I discovered the way, which if you click on a session, you get related sessions. The recommender engine is really awesome. I really like it.
That's good. Yeah, but I have to say thank you guys for joining today. Tomorrow we are back again. I think we have, let me check who my guests are. Our Ant Stanley, another serverless hero. I think Aleksandar knows Ant, and I imagine Ricardo also, who doesn't know Ant.
Exactly. And his dogs.
And his dogs. They're very popular on Twitter. And we have Rob DeFeo, another developer advocate. He's focused on startups. So tomorrow we will have more serverless and startups into the mix. Again, most of my guests are serverless based for reasons. But this is my audience.
I love serverless too, though, so don't worry. I'm a big serverless fan.
Everybody is a fan of serverless. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
But feel free to check the agenda for all the guests. I have amazing guests. It's like 18 people say yes to this thing. I cannot believe it. I'm super happy that you accepted, and it was really nice chatting with you. And thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us, Marcia. It's really a pleasure to be here and talk to you and your viewers. It's really amazing.
Yeah, likewise. That's great. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody watching. Thank you, everybody watching. And you guys don't leave the broadcast. I will stop this, and we are going offline now. So, bye-bye.